All right, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. We are live and let's start off with today's class. Just give me a minute, guys. All right, yeah. Let's get to today's content. We're going to be exploring loops. So, in the last class, we had a pretty good discussion over conditional statements. We had an introduction to what pseudocode is. We saw how you can assign values, and then we saw that because computer is most important, or the most important backbone of our world or of our computer life, is all related to decisions, where we need to make a decision whether we should be doing this, whether I need to allocate resources to that, or whether I need to take this step or that step. For that, we saw that we have a terminology known as conditional statements, and we saw the two types of examples of the conditional statements, which are these two which are in front of you: the if statement one and then the case statement. Now, I hope this is fully clear to you. If not, you can reach out to me later on and I can re-explain it to you. Otherwise, inshallah, in the Sunday's class, we're going to do a bit more of a practice regarding the two cases, and then we're going to see where can we make use of the if statement and how, and just like that, how can we make use the case statement while doing the practice session, inshallah, on Sunday. So now today we are basically going to be jumping onto a newer concept. And that concept has a pretty sort of a terrifying name, and it is basically loop. Now, what does the word loop mean? Hmm. A loop is basically something which goes sort of in a circle. Okay. When we say that something goes in a circle, you might have seen which basically is any sort of structure which returns to its own point. So any structure like this is basically a loop that starts at a specific point and then goes back and comes to the same point again. So by the diagram, you can see that it's basically sort of that model where if something is starting at a place, it goes back to that place and then it goes back and it goes on. So it sort of repeats itself. So when we say that we have a concept known as loops, or it can be also called as iteration, both of the two are the relevant names, we are basically talking about how one can basically repeat a set amount of code within their programming statements. So like, let's say one of you is like, okay, I want the program to do a specific task 100 times. So would you be like willing to write the whole statement 100 times, or would you be willing to find a specific shortcut which can allow repetition of code? Definitely, because we are programmers, we do not want to waste our time. So we have to look for some logic or some sort of shortcut that can allow us to repeat our code, which can allow us to iterate our code. So now you might be wondering, sir, why do we even need this loop? Like, give us an example. So for instance, I say that now, Moise, let's say I say that, Moise, you need to write this statement. Oh, my bad. If Moise is given this task of writing this statement, I will get an A star, inshallah, 100 times. If I give this task to Moise and he's allowed to use whatever technology or whatever method he wants to make use of, so will Moise be ideally writing this whole statement 100 times? Would it be like output I will get an A star inshallah, output I will get an A star inshallah, output I will get an A star inshallah, and so on? Wouldn't that be very inefficient? Because you're not wasting 100 lines of code, at the same time you're wasting, sorry for that, you're also wasting your energy, and at the same time it's not giving you any benefit, right? So now, when we are talking about loops, we basically want to discuss a method that allows us to basically introduce a terminology or introduce a concept or a specific set of statements that can allow Moise to write this statement once, but tell the command or tell the computer somehow that, bro, when you're trying to execute it, you need to run it 100 times. And that's the whole logic behind discussing loops and iteration. Because while doing computer statements, while solving multiple problems, there would be a lot of need to basically repeat a set amount of code a set amount of times. But because we don't want to write the code every time, we're going to be making use of the iterations or of the loops. Sorry, if you have a question, you can just send it in the chat box. You're not, we cannot unmute because the recording is being, sorry, the class is being recorded. So if you have a question, you can just send it in the chat box and I will get back to you on it. All right, so now if let's say I say that Moise wants to do a specific thingy 100 times, in that case, how can he basically repeat a specific set of code? For that, we have basically three ways. Three ways. So we're going to be studying the three ways of iteration, or the three loops that we have in our course. Now, a lot of students are generally not taught why and where is this specific method effective. But today we're going to be exploring all these three methods alongside when should you be going with which one. This is the point which a lot of students are unable to understand, due to which they are like, okay, sir, sometimes I write my answer with this loop, but in the exam, when I check the marking scheme later on, I see that the examiner wrote it using this loop. Now, does this mean my loop is incorrect? No, it does not mean your loop is incorrect. But then why is the examiner using a different loop, whereas you're using a different loop? There are basically a few strategies which denote and tell you when to use a specific sort of, what do we call it, loop. So we're going to be discussing all of them inshallah today, and by the end of the class you would be inshallah very familiar with all the three types of loops. So now the first loop is basically known as for to next. So just the way we had the statement or the skeleton for the conditional statements, the skeleton for the first type of loop is basically known as for to next. Now this type of loop is basically the one where you are known, or you basically are aware how many times you want to repeat a specific statement. So like if I know that I, let's say, tell Moise that you need to print this statement 100 times. Now in this case, we are aware that I want to repeat this code for 100 times, right? So the moment when you are aware that how many times I want to repeat a specific statement, and I want to uh, do a loop for a specific occurrence or for a specific set of numbers, I'm going to be making use of this loop. So this loop is used, or it is ideally recommended to be used, when you know the set number of repeats. So if you know that I have to repeat it, let's say 10 times, rather than going for any other sort of looping method or repetition method, you should go and make use of the for to next. Because when you make use of for to next, it's going to be implementing a specific code or a specific statement, which can easily do a specific repetition for a set number of repeats. So how is it being used? So for example, if you want to, let's say, write the code that I want to print this statement, I will get an A star inshallah for 100 times. So what you need to do is you need to, just like before, start off with the first word, which would be what? For. So we're going to be writing for. And now we need to create a variable. And that variable needs to basically count how many times have we repeated something. So like if I'm now downloading, or if I'm trying to output this statement, I need to count it, right? Okay, I printed it once, I printed it twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times. And let's say I'm going to do it till like 100, 98, 99, and now it's 100. The moment it touches 100, I would be aware that, okay, I've counted it 100 times and now I need to stop. So now let's say if I want to count it for a set number of times, what should be there? What would I be doing? I would be creating a variable, right? A variable that will be storing the value of how many times I'm basically counting something. So like the counting variable would store the value of zero initially when it has counted nothing. Then let's say we repeated it once, the value of the count variable would now be 1. I repeat it twice, the value becomes 2. I repeat it thrice, the value becomes 3. I repeat it 4 times, the value becomes 4. And every time I'm basically checking, is the value of count equal to the number of loops I'm trying to do? If they're not equal, I need to repeat it. And this is going to go on until I reach the set number of repeats I want to achieve. So how this is going to work is you're going to say for, and then you need to write basically a variable name. Now this variable name could be anything. In this case, because let's say mostly when you're going to be making use of for loop or an exam, when you're going to see the word or a loop, you're going to see that mostly they refer to a keyword or a variable with the name of count. Now, why do they say count? It's basically to tell that we are basically counting something. So counting from 0 to, let's say, 100 to see whether how many times a specific thing has been repeated. So if I want to count something, I'm going to give the name count, let's say. Okay, this could be anything. But now for sake of understanding, let's say we do for count. And now this is a variable. Now this variable needs to start from the first position and needs to go till 100 because I need to output it 100 times, right? So if I want to assign a value to a specific variable, what will I be doing? I'll be adding this arrow. If you remember, we discussed this in the last class that we're going to have something as an assignment operator. And then post the assignment operator, I would be writing the statement 1 to 100. So this statement is basically saying that you need to start off with a loop. Now you cannot generally do count, like this statement would be incorrect if you just write count 1 to 100. This is incorrect. Why? Because it's not within the loop boundary. This 1 to 100 is only valid when you write it alongside the for statement. So like you write for, which tells the computer, okay, this person is going to be making use of a loop or is going to repeat a code for a set number of times. And then we create a specific variable, we gave it the name of count, and when we are like, okay, you need to start counting from 1 and you need to count until we get 100. So the moment this count variable now has the value 100, it would be like, okay, I have completed all the repetitions and now I should basically stop. Unless this count does not become 100, I need to basically keep on repeating, keep on repeating, keep on repeating. Now how will I be doing this? So this statement is just going to tell the computer programmer or the compiler or whatever the computer is that you need to repeat it, let's say 100 times. Now what is this two slashes which I just added? This is basically known as a comment. So if I want to explain my code somewhere and I'm basically want to add some comment or maybe explain my code or maybe highlight something or let the examiner know it's something, maybe if I want to just add some text to explain what I'm trying to do, we always add a comment. Now in your 15 marker, this comment holds marks. So whenever you're trying to do a 15 marker or anything which you seem to think like that, it's a bit complex and you're unable to do it the right way, what you should be doing is, if you feel like it might be creating some confusion, or even if it's not creating confusion, it's a good practice that when you do something, add two slashes and then basically write some comment. And this is necessary for the 15 marker. For the others, it's not. But in 15 marker, if you don't add these comments, you would be losing marks. So an easy tip for getting even somewhat marks if you are preparing for your mock examinations, if you are writing a 15 marker and you're even unable to do the full code the right way, add relevant comments because these thingies have marks. So don't miss upon these comments. So now what are we going to do? We are starting off with the variable from value 1 and then we are moving to 100. And now what I wanted to do is that for every value from 1 to 100, I want it to basically output what I can get, or I will get an A star, inshallah. A star, inshallah. Now, this statement is now just saying that till this loop or till this variable count does not have the value of 100 in it, till it goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on and on till it reaches 100. Every time you need to basically execute this stuff, everything that is basically within this gap. Now it can have multiple other commands too, but because our scenario in this case is just for the purpose of creating a program that repeats this statement, it's just going to be writing output, I will get an A star, inshallah. But now the thing or the question which in your mind would have been existing would have been, sir, where and how will the computer get to know that originally this count has the value of 1 and now it should become 2 and then it should become 3 and then it should become 4? How is it basically increasing automatically? So for that increasing, what we do is that when we are making use of for loop, at the very end we write one word which is known as next, and then we write the name of the specific variable. So then we write, so in this case it's going to be next count, which basically means that every time you execute this statement and it goes from, like, your computer works in a way, it's going to first execute this, then it's going to come to this, it's going to execute this, then it's going to come up here. The moment it comes up here, your count value with the next keyword means that whatever the value in count is, do +1 into it. So if originally this had the value 1, now it's going to become 2. Then it's going to go back and it's going to see is the value of count equal to the number of iterations or the number of repetition the user wanted. If it is, then it's going to leave, the loop is going to end. But if it's not, let's say it's 2 in this case, then it will be like, okay, let me repeat it. So it's going to output it again and then it's going to go and plus 1 again, which means this would be now 3. And this would go on until it becomes 100. So now when 100 times this thing is printed, we're going to get out of the loop. That is one way. That is one way of basically repeating a specific set of code in pseudocode. So indentations are important in Python. Only not mandatory. So no, even yeah, these indentations are not mandatory at all. But the thing is, because this allows your code to be a bit structured, you do have marks for presentation in the 15 marker. So if you sort of do not do this indentation part or indicate what's coming under what. Now remember, I even told this point to you yesterday. Then now if I look at this statement output, it's now I clearly understand that this statement would only be executed if this for loop is executed. It's like telling me that this statement is basically coming under the for loop, right? But now if I, let's say, write output up here, let's say output XYZ. Now, does this show me that this output is coming under this for loop, or is it like a separate statement? In this case, it's a separate statement. But what if this output was also up here? Then this output would have been a 1 below this for one, or it would have been something dependent upon the for loop. So in this case, it's sort of important that you do have this structure so that you don't lose the presentation marks. Exactly. No, we have multiple other repetition methods too, which we're going to discuss now. This was one of the 3 methods. Now, Iman has a pretty good question, but before addressing that, we have Samraj. Samraj said count plus 1. Samraj, what are you trying to say? You're trying to say that if I do count plus 1 on my own, is that your question? So that I can basically, rather than making use of next count, should I do count plus 1 on my own? Is that what your question is trying to tell me? Just try to expand a bit on your question so that I can understand it easily. Now, coming to the second question, which has been stated by Iman. Iman is saying, sir, what does the count always start from 0 or from 1? That's a pretty good question. Now, the thing is, this counting can start from 0 and can start from 1. Now, let's say I'm like, okay, I have to repeat something 5 times. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if you remember, I told you guys one thing in chapter number 1, that your computer always starts repetition or like some calculation from 0. Now, it's up to you in this case. If you count the first element to be 0, let's say you are like, okay, this is count number 0, this is count number 1, this is count number 2, this is count number 3, this is count number 4. If you start your count in this case, like up here, we started it from 1, right? If you started from 0, in that case, it's 100% valid. But rather than like right now, if you see how many times are we repeating? We are repeating 5 times. But what's the maximum number to which we are going? We are going to a number less than the maximum number. We are going till 4. Why? Because rather than normally we start by counting 1, right? So I'm like, okay, this is 1, this is 2. Apologies for that. But normally when we count, we're like, okay, 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. But this is the model where we are like, okay, you need to start counting from 1. If I specify in a program that you need to start counting from 1, it's going to work in a way where we'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if we start with a program where we are like, okay, you need to start counting from 0, that basically means that the first repetition would be 0, the second repetition would be 1, the third repetition would be 2, the fourth one is going to be 3, and the fifth one is going to be 4. So in that case, this basically means that if I'm repeating 5 times, I need to go to a maximum value of what? It has to be 4, right? Because we are starting from 0. So if I include that 0 too, it's going to be 1 less than the total number, right? So if it's going to be 1 less than the total number, this means that if I'm repeating from 0 in this case, it needs to go till 99. Because if I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, blah, blah, it's going to go till 100. But if I'm like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then if I also include this 0 to 99, if I count all the numbers between 0 to 99, they will also be 100. Just like 100 up here. So if you're like counting 5 chairs, if you start from 1 to 5, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you start 0 to 4, it's going to be again 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is one thing. That if in exam you ever see the word that your count is starting from 0, don't worry. It basically means that you are going to be starting your counting from 0, which basically means that you need to go from 0 till 1 minus that amount of iteration you want to do. So in this case, 100 minus 1, 99. Otherwise, my recommendation would be stick to 1, because if you do it from 1, it's identically the amount of loops which you want to execute. So like I want 1 to, let's say, 20, so it's going to be 1 to 20. If I started from 0, then it would be required that I do it from 0 to 19 rather than 0 to 20. Is this clear, everybody? This is an important point. Then I'm going to come to the next question. Both of them are identically the same thing, because you're starting from 0. 0 to 99 is also 100, and 1 to 100 is also the same thing. So you're sort of having the same number of repetition. Exactly. You're 100% correct, Sanal. At some occasions, the question themselves specifies that you're starting off from 0 to 99. So you should be aware of both the conventions, but just know 0 to 99 also means repeating it 100 times. 1 to 100 also means repeating it 100 times. Now, to address the other questions, we do not need to add any sort of end count, because we are like, okay, next count, which means that you should repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. That's it. So will we write this as our code to add 1 and repeat? Okay. Now, once you are making use of this for loop, remember, when you make use of for loop, you never have to add 1 into count. This statement, this next count statement, this is sort of having this function automatically. This has a built-in function. This has the function of doing count plus 1. So you don't need to separately do count plus 1. This writing this statement next count will tell the computer that whatever the value in count is, just do plus 1 into it. So this has the function of adding 1 into count. So if I now want to repeat a specific statement 100 times, this is the small code which I need to write. I'm going to start off with for. I'll be like, okay, I need to set up a variable and I want it to start from 1, make it go till 100. Then I will be like, okay, output this statement. And then once this statement has executed, I'll be like, okay, repeat it again, which basically means increase the value of count. So this count now, rather than 1, becomes 2, and this goes on until I make the value of it as 100. That is the end of for loop. That is everything you need to know. That's the whole thing of how you can make use of it. Do we need to say end count? No, you do not need to add any sort of end count. Reading the question is really important. If you don't read the question carefully, there's a great chance that you're going to lose on easy sort of marks. So it's really important that you read the question really well. If I have to make use of one other example, let's say I'm like, okay, I need to, let's say, write a code which basically outputs, let's say, 1 to 50. If I say that I now need to output 15 numbers, but it needs to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way till 50, I can make use of the for loop for that. You know how? I'll be like, okay, let's make use of for loop. I'll be like, start off with the statement for. Then I can set a specific variable. In this case, let's say, let's give it the name of numbers. Okay, for numbers. Now this numbers needs to start from where? Because I want my first element to be 1, right? I want to output 1. I would start this counting from 1. And I need to take it till where? I need to take it till the maximum number, which is 50. So till 1 to 50. At this point, if I now want to output the specific value, like right now, this thingy, this also has some value, right? This is a variable. This is a variable. And if I want to print or output this variable, I can also do that. So I can sort of write this statement that I should basically output whatever the value is in this variable numbers. So what is this doing? It is basically saying that when you're trying to repeat it, whatever the value in this specific variable is, whatever the value is, just print that value up here. So it's going to be basically something like this, numbers. And then I would be like, okay, now you should do an increment or basically increase the value of numbers. So how is this whole thing working? It's starting off with a variable with the name of numbers. Originally, it has the value of 1 inside it. So this originally has the value of 1 inside it. So now I'm like, okay, output numbers. The moment this statement gets executed, I have 1 printed on my screen. Then what happens? You see that this, after this thing has been outputted, I do next numbers, which basically makes this numbers plus 1, and now it becomes 2. Now I'm like, okay, output numbers again. Now numbers has what value inside it? It has a value 2 inside it. So now when I output this, now I'm going to be getting 1 and 2. Then again, I do next numbers. Now this two, it had 2 originally. Now it's going to be 2 plus 1. And now the new value would be 3. So this variable is now going to store the value 3. And now it's again going to output it. And now I'm going to have 3 on my screen. And this is going to continue till the last number 50 comes up. And then because it has the loop till 50, it is going to end and it's going to print 50. And then the moment this becomes 51, the moment it becomes 51, when the comparison check happens up here, it's going to see that, okay, 51 is greater than the maximum 50. So it's no longer going to execute whatever is inside it. But this is one other way of basically printing a specific number. Now, now to answer the questions, काफी questions आ गए. Let me answer each of them one by one. So for counter 1 to 9 output, I love games more than studying. Next count. Yes, this is 100% correct. This is 100%. But after the word counter, you need to add an arrow, this assignment operator arrow. This is important. Now, Ramin has a question, can we use count instead of numbers? Definitely, it's a variable. You can give it any name. If you want for x to 1 to 50, that's also valid. You want to do something like for y 1 to 50, that's also valid. But whatever the scenario is, always try to use a meaningful identifier. When you're declaring or when you're making use of variables, give them a name which basically tells us what's the purpose of it. In your 15 markers, there are marks for this too. If you give a random name like let's say x and it does not tell me what that variable is doing, you are going to be losing marks for it too. So now remember I told that 15 marker question is not that difficult. It's because you're literally getting marks for giving a variable a nice name. So you can write, if this is storing numbers, I'm giving it the name of numbers rather than some XYZ. So yeah, the question where can we use count? Definitely, you can write anything, but try to give it a name which is sort of something that tells us what is that specific variable storing. Now, Samraj has a question, sir, don't we put quotation marks around numbers which is after outputs? Now remember, yesterday I told you guys one thing. If I want to output some text, whenever I want to output some text, for text, I need to basically put these quotation marks. But if I want to put some sort of numbers, or let's say I want to print some sort of variable, then there is no need to put quotation marks. No need to put these quotation marks, because these quotation marks are just used for the purpose of telling us that there is a specific text. So if you do not include these quotation marks, it basically tells the computer that you're either trying to print some number or you're trying to print something which is a variable. So in this case, numbers is a what? It's a variable. So that is why it is 100% valid. Just like that, if I would have made it something like this, maybe make it 25, that would have also been valid, which in this case, if I run this statement, this would have basically outputted the number 25 50 times, and it would have seen 25 25 25 25 50 times on our screen. So that is also one way of printing a specific number 50 times. But remember, the main point is, if you have text, make use of quotation marks. If you don't have text, no need to put these quotation marks. Just write the number or the name of the variable, and that would be enough. Then Mohit just say, isn't if statement works best for this? For what? Mohit, I did not get your question though. Sir, blah blah. Sir, won't we put this line in the code input numbers? Which line? Which specific line are you talking about? And then you have, okay, a lot of questions are coming up. Just a minute. So now the next one, Iman is saying, sir, a variable should always come after for. Yes, the variable name should always be coming after the for. So we're going to be writing for, and followed by the for, we're going to specify the variable name. So the skeleton works in a way that we basically have something known as for, and then after that, you basically write the variable name, whatever the variable is. And then you put an assignment operator, and then you do start from where you need to start the counting to end, where you want to end it. And then you're basically going to write those statements, whatever your coding statements are. And then in the end, you need to write next, and then followed by next, you need to write the variable name again. This is the structure which you need to memorize. So the main things are for, then this operator, then to, and finally next. So just memorize this and you'll be automatically good to go. So now, sir, what about real numbers, float numbers? That's something we're going to discuss in chapter number 8. So don't worry, we're going to discuss that later on. It will at this point print the numbers. यार I don't know, something just happened to me. गला मेरा अचानक खराब हो गया, even though I was perfectly fine like a while ago. But yeah, is this clear, everybody? Everyone in the chat box, quickly. Do you guys understand the implementation of this for loop? Yes or no? Perfect. Everyone else. Perfect, perfect, perfect. That's great to know. Yes, Koratalan, do you have a question? Or are we good to go? If you have a question, yeah. पूछो, क्या question है? Ask us so that we can address that. And then we're going to move on to the next loop. And inshallah, on Sunday, we're going to do a lot of practice for these loops and all this stuff which we have studied. The part about output numbers. Okay. What exactly is numbers? Okay. Let's say we're going to store a variable. What's a variable? So now in computer science, if you want to store some data, if you want to store some data in the memory or in any memory slot or anywhere, you want to, let's say, store some data. Like if I want to store marks, yeah, that is a variable. Do you get the logic behind variable? Because this thingy is a variable. This number up here is a variable which we sort of created, and this variable is going to store some value, and the value which it's going to store is going to be starting from 1, and then it's going to increment, and it is going to basically increase. The word increment means increasing by 1. So when I say increment, this basically means that I'm increasing the value by 1. Right, let me even write this up here so that you can understand this. Increment basically means plus 1. So when I say that increment, this means that I'm increasing the value by 1. So up here, what's happening is we have a variable, and then we're basically increasing the value one by one, one by one, one by one. And whatever the value of this variable is, we're just printing it out. So originally, let's say it started off with the value of 1, and then it's slowly increasing towards 50, and every time it's increasing, I'm basically printing it out. So it had, the variable originally had value 1, I was outputting 1. Then it next numbers, this value became 2, so now the variable had the value 2, I'm outputting that, and then it's going to continue till it gets to 50. Perfect, that's great. All right, so variable is a container which stores data and can be changed during the process. Sir, is this even right? Rather than naming it a container, we're going to give it a proper, I'm going to share the proper definition. It's just for your own understanding that I'm calling it a container, but it's basically a specific stored value. Yeah, Moise, that would be better, which stores a data temporarily, and it can be changed. I'm going to discuss the main and the formal definition in the class, don't worry. But yeah, your logic is correct. So, yeah. So now we have discussed one of the 3 ways of basically repeating a specific thing. And now when I will be making use of this structure for to next, when I'm aware how many times I need to repeat something. So if I'm aware that I need to repeat something 50 times, I will be not moving towards any of the other 2 methods. I will be just discussing for to next. I will be just introducing for to next in my code. Point number 1. Now let's say the other loop is basically when you're not aware how many times you need to run something. Just give me a minute, मैं कोई दवाई ले लूं, फिर उसके बाद for all those who are from Lahore, literally your atmosphere is, बस क्या ही बोलूं. I'm not from Lahore, but literally being here in Lahore is such a challenging task, man. Like literally, it's just gonna kill you from the atmosphere is literally so क्या ही बोलूं. Never mind, let's just get off back to the content. So now the second loop is what we call as, we have 2 sort of loops left. The next one is basically known as repeat until. Repeat until. Now this is the set of rule where, let's say, you are not aware how many times you need to repeat something, but you're basically doing it till a specific condition is becoming true. So you're not aware. Okay, I'm like, okay, I would be like, okay, let's say Sanan, you need to practice, you need to repeat something as many times till it, let's say, gets perfect. I'm not sure. It can run once, maybe you do it once and your statement is 100% perfect and you get exit. Or otherwise, you need to, let's say, repeat it 1,000 times. But the condition is that you need to repeat something till you get perfect inside it. So what's happening? You're not aware of how many times you need to do a specific thing again and again, again and again, again and again. What we are aware is that we have a condition, and the moment that condition becomes true, we are done with the loop. So that specific scenario where you're going to run something for a specific set of times, or I'm going to do a specific thingy till a specific condition becomes true, for that we will be making use of this, which is known as the repeat until loop. Now what happens in repeat until loop is that is basically a repetition where the number of repeats is not known. A number of a loop, a type of loop, by the way, my bad, a type of loop where the number of iteration, where the number of iteration is not known, iterations is not known, and it repeats, not known, and it repeats till what do we call it, till a specific condition is being met. Specific condition is being met. Now this sort of loop is also given a when specific sort of name. Now I'm going to study that name, but I'm going to explain it later on. So yeah, now this specific loop is known as a specific loop in which the condition is checked later on, and this loop is known as post condition loop. Okay, post condition loop, because in exam they sometimes say what's a post condition loop. You should be aware post condition loop is that loop in which the condition is checked at the end, and because the condition is checked at the end, this loop runs at least once. Now we're going to discuss both of them. What do we mean by this? Don't worry if it's not clear, but yeah, now let's get to what does this mean and how we can sir, what is written after iterations? Let me see. Is not known. Let me rewrite it so it's clear. This basically is not known, and it repeats till a specific condition is being met. Extremely sorry यार, पता नहीं मेरे गले को क्या हो गया. It was going pretty well though, but I guess so the last class or the last demo class had us a bit suffering though. But yeah, now let's look into what repeat until is. Now just the way I mentioned, if I need to repeat a specific thingy where I'm not aware how many times I need to repeat it, but I'm just going to do it till a point where I'm like, okay, till that point where I might be like, okay, this specific condition is being met, I'm going to be making use of repeat until. Like, how would I be doing that? So for instance, I say that you need to do something, you need to repeat something until this counter is basically greater than 50. Or no, not greater than 50. Maybe repeat it till an extent where, yeah, let's say you need to do something till you, well, kaise nahi? A better question would be you need to repeat it till you, let's do it initially an easy question. Let's say you need to repeat a specific code where you need to print a specific number till the counter is greater than 10. Now this is a condition. Now in this case, I am aware how many times I'm repeating it, but we're going to discuss the 1, 2 where I need to have a specific condition being met too. But if I, let's say, want to print a specific number and that number is, let's say, 2. If I want to print the number 2 till the counter is becoming greater than 10, how will I be writing the loop statement for that? So what I'm going to be doing is I will be making use of the repeat statement. I'm going to write repeat. Then I would be like, okay, in this case, I would be initializing or I would be creating a counter variable separately. I'm not writing any counter or count the way I did in the for loop where I was like, okay, counter 1 to 10. In this case, I would be like, okay, counter is something which has the value 0 at this point. It has the value 0. We know, okay, it is 0 and it needs to go from 0 till 10. Now, how many times is that repeating? I'm not sure. Maybe if I want it to be like 124 times, I'm not sure ye kitna banega or how much this exactly would be. But the main purpose here to note is, and I'm going to start the repetition. I'll be like, okay, you need to initialize something with 0. The counter would be initialized with 0. It's going to have the value 0. But I made a mistake. I placed equals to up here. That's wrong. Whenever I'm initializing something, I need to put this arrow. Remember, If you do it the way I just did like a minute ago, you're going to lose marks. So whenever you're assigning some value to a variable, in this case counter is a variable, then I'm going to be assigning it using this assignment operator. So what I did just was that I'm like counter, you put the value of 0 inside it, and now let's say we're going to repeat it. And in that repeat, I'm like, okay, I just need to do output, and then let's say I want to just output the number 2. So now this is basically going to repeat until what? Until the point, until the point where my counter is basically greater than 10. So till my counter is less than 10, till it does not cross the value of 10, it is basically going to repeat, 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 repeat. But in this entire code, there is one problem. And that problem is the value of counter, that is not being changed. Like in the first one, in the for loop, we saw that, okay, we're going to write something like next numbers, but we don't have anything like next count in this case. No problem, no problem. आता हूँ, उस point पे आता हूँ, Iman, you're correct. So basically, I'm saying that let's say you want to make use of the repeat until loop, where you now want to print a specific number 2, but you want to print it for a time till the condition, this condition where we are saying that there is a variable counter, till this value is the value of this counter is greater than 10. You need to basically keep on repeating the outputting of the number 2. Say, so now I want to print this number 2, but I want to do it with the condition that this counter value should not be greater than 10. I'm not sure. Let's say I say that I'm not sure what the value of counter is at this point. Or let's say in this case, we are aware the counter value is, let's say, 0. Now, if I want to write this code, because I want to take it a bit easy, and also mera gala thoda kharab hai, so I'm unable to explain it the right way, but inshallah we're going to discuss this a bit more in the next class too, so that I can re-explain what I'm trying to expand upon. So at this point, we are basically having a counter 0, and then I'm saying, okay, you make use of repeat, and this tells the computer that you need to output this thingy a specific set of time, and the condition is that you need to do it until the counter is greater than 10. But now in this entire code, there is one problem. The problem is this counter is still having the value of 0. This value is not increasing at all. It has been basically stuck. It is fixed at this one position of 0. We need to ensure that it works in a way where this 0 becomes 1, and then this 1 becomes 2, and it goes on till it becomes a 10, so that we can stop the loop, right? But in this code, can you see anywhere where the values counter is being increased? No, right? So for that, remember, when we make use of this repeat until or the third type of loop, we automatically manually basically have to increase the value of the counter or whatever loop thingy variable we have. So in this case, it's going to be counter, and in counter we are going to put the value of counter plus 1. So why are we doing counter plus 1? It's basically, let's say counter now has the value of, let's say, 2. It has the value of 2. Let's say we have the counter storing the value of 2. Now if I do counter and then I do counter plus 1, so this statement is invalid. The one way of doing it is basically writing counter, and now because if I want to add 1, I basically mean that you need to take this 2 and then you need to do 2 plus 1, right? So that the value becomes 3. So how can I do that? For that, I'm going to be like, okay, you need to store the final answers again in the same variable counter, but you need to bring the old 2, which is basically again in the variable counter, and you need to add 1 into it. So doing this would mean that you need to add the previous value of counter, and then you add 1 into it, and whatever the answer is, you take that value and you again store it in the variable counter. So now this was 2 plus 1. You get the answer 3, and then this 3 is basically stored again in the variable counter. And now this is the method how your counter variable is going to be incremented. And now originally it was 0. It's going to output 2 once. Then this counter is going to, like, if I have to dry run it for you, yeah, bilkul. It's just a random example. Let's say I just want to output 2. It's just an example. Let's say I say that I want to output the number 2, let's say 10 times. That's an example. So you can output anything. Like, it's not something. एक से मैं फिर से आपको समझाता हूँ. I can start it from the start. फिर आपको अच्छे से समझ आ जाएगी. Don't worry. It's easy. So in the first one, this thingy of loop is pretty much very good. It's because you specify the variable, you tell it कि यहाँ से start होने, you need to go till this point, and you need to do this work, and then you're automatically making use of next, which basically means that you're sort of repeating that thing, right? Now, In this case, we have a repeat until loop. In repeat until, what you do is you basically repeat the code till a specific condition is being met. In this case, our condition is that your counter value needs to be greater than 10. Till it's not greater than 10, you need to execute everything that's within this repeat statement block. So everything within this statement. So like you need to do this and you need to do that. Now, if I have to look onto this counter thingy, let's say we need to be aware that what's the value in the counter, right? So now the case which we are discussing, let's say we create a scenario that, okay, I want to print the number 2 for a set number of times. Now, it's not necessary or something, but it is something where, let's say I want to do it for a set number of times. Just, I want to print number 2. Now, I mean, the question where you were saying, why are we just outputting 2? It's because I want to, let's say, output 2. Or I can even change it. Let's say I want to output, let's say some other thing. Maybe I want to output hi. So now at this case, it's a text, so it's going to be double quotation, right? So let's say I want to output hi. So I want to output hi how many times? Till the moment where this condition is going to become false. Now, when will this become false? So for that, I would be creating a variable counter at the first. Then I will be assigning the value of 0 to it so that it starts from 0. Or if I want, I can also do it with 1. It's up to me. I can assign whatever I want to it. So now I would be like, okay, start off. And now you need to output high. So on the screen, I'm going to get high. Then it's going to increase the value of the counter. This value of 1 is going to come up here. This 1 is originally within the counter, right? That's the value of the variable 1. And then 1 plus 1 is what? It's 2. So now your value of counter becomes 2. Now it's going to check, is 2 greater than 10? No, right? So you need to go back. So it's going to go back up here. It's again going to output high. Now we have high again. Now it's again going to be like, okay, 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So we're going to get 3 up here. Then it would be like, okay, is 3 greater than 10? No, right? It's going to repeat. Then I'm going to have high again. And this is going to continue till in the end we have something left, like, for instance, something like 11. So now is 11 greater than 10? Yes, it is. The moment 11 is greater than 10, I would be exiting this loop. But till that point occurs, I would have basically printed the word high at least 10 times. And that is the second way of basically printing a specific set of statements a specific number of times. So, okay, so we do have a lot of questions. Just a minute. Does it matter if counter is greater than 10 is outside or within the loop? It's basically the structure. This counter greater than 10 is basically the condition. You always need to write the condition after until. So it's basically you need to follow this method. You need to write repeat, then you need to write all the statements, and then you write until, and this after until you need to write the condition. So if I make the skeleton for it, it's basically repeat, and then you do something in this part, so like some statements, whatever coding statements you want to write, and then in the end you're like, okay, repeat this until, and then you have whatever condition you have. So till this condition does not become false, these statements are going to be repeated again and again. So now the next thing is, Kuratilan is just asking, can't we just write until counter equals to 10? Yeah, you can. If you want, you can also do it this way. It's similar to saying until counter is equal to 10. That's the same thing. Being greater than 10 would also mean that the moment this value becomes 11, you should stop. And this thingy is also the same thing. The moment this value becomes 11, 11 is not equal to 10, right? So it's not going to output it at all. Also, when do we use counter and when do we use count? It's the exact same thing. So count is what? You're counting something. Count is you're counting something. And let's say we give it a more fancy name, so we call it like counter. A counter like the tasbih counter. Subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. You're counting something. So now if you want to give it the name of count, or whether you want to call it counter, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter. If Q says till 10, then you will write counter equals to 10. Sanan, I did not get your question. Can you repeat that? Okay, we do have a lot of questions. Guys, abhi ke liye ruko. Abhi just come, let me just answer these questions and aage phir aap log phir se bhejna. Sanan, you can just resend your question. Till then, let's answer the ones stated by Sabra. Sir, if the question says like count in multiples of 2, so will we write counter plus 2? Exactly, bilkul. If it's not count in multiples of 2, now you can do it this way. There is a better way to do that too. But now if Samraj gave us a pretty good example that, let's say we need to print even numbers. Let's say we need to print even numbers. What are even numbers? Even numbers are, let's say, starting from 0, then 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, then 10. So now let me even confirm, is 0 an even number? I'm not sure though. Is 0 an even number? I guess it's not, or is it? Yeah, 0 is an even number. Perfect. So if I have to write code for this, I can basically write one statement, something like this. I can start off with a repeat loop. First, I make a specific variable number. This number is storing the value 0 at this point. It's a variable. It has the value 0. Now I would be like, okay, repeat it and repeat it till, let's say I want to print till 10. Let's say I want the maximum number to be 10. So I'd be like, okay, repeat. And then what you need to do is you need to output the value of the variable num. So you do output num. And after that, let's say we now printed, once this statement is being run, it's going to print 0, right? So now if I do after this num, and within num, I do num plus 1. What does this mean? This basically means that you should make this 0 a 1, right? But if we have an even number, what's the next even number in the list? It's a 2, right? So I want something which basically makes this 0 a 2, which would be similar to saying that if I add 2 into it, it's going to do the job. So if I do num, but num equals to num plus 2, it's now basically going to increase the value from 0 to 2. And now I'm going to repeat it until what condition is being met? Until my number is, let's say, equal to 10, or like, let's say, greater than 10. Now, why am I doing greater than 10 and why would I be doing equals to 10? So the moment I do equals to 10, in that case, when the value of this becomes 10, the value of this number becomes 10. Let's say we have the value becomes 10 and it's going to come again. Like, let's say now previously we ran it and we had the value of 8 and now the value becomes 10. So now when it goes back and it reaches this point, because the value is equal to 10, it's not going to run it. Why? Because the condition has been met. So because num is equal to 10, 10 is equal to 10, it's going to not execute the 10th part. So if I want it to basically execute the 10th part too, I need to add the greater than sign so that it basically indicates that I'm sort of talking about how I want it to print anything that I want it to stop after 10 is being printed. So now after 10 is being printed, the value is going to become 12. And now 12 is greater than 10, which basically means you need to stop at this point. So now how is this working? It's basically you're initially printing 0. Then you do, okay, 0, 0 plus 2, num becomes 2. So now this num is 2. Is 2 greater than 10? No, right? 2 is not greater than 10. Repeat it. So output num. Now you have 2 printed. Then 2 plus 2. This is now becoming 4. And then I'm like, okay, is 4 greater than 10? No, right? Go back. Output num. You output 4. Then you're like, okay, 4 plus 2, this is becoming 6. And then you're doing, and this goes on till the last condition where, let's say, you have 10. Is 10 greater than 10? Is 10 greater than 10? No, 10 is not greater than 10. 10 is equal to 10. Because it's not greater than, we are again going to run it. And it's going to be printing 10 the last time. And then it's going to become 10 plus 2. And it's going to be 12. And now in this case, when we have 12, 12 is greater than 10 and it's going to stop. So we're going to get all the even numbers in front of us. That's one other code which I want you all to look onto. So 2 is being displayed to user computer is just showing it. Sir, what would have happened if we put counter 0 inside the loop? Good question. It's something रुको मैं बताता हूँ. I was asking her that it depends. Okay. Sir, won't we take an input from the user like a number input? That depends. That's something which depends upon the question. So like if I want to write a code where I want to print even numbers from 0 to 20, I don't need to take an input. Like why would I be asking the user to tell me something when I know that I need to print numbers from 0 to 20? You take input from the user where you need to manipulate users data. In the Sundays class, inshallah, I'm going to make you all practice some questions where we're going to take data from the user and then we're going to make some operations up here. But now the main logic which I want you all to understand at this point is that how are we making use of repeat followed by until statement? What's happening? We're basically repeating a set of code until a specific condition is being met. The moment this condition is basically becoming true, you're coming out. So the moment this condition is staying false, you're repeating it, but this becomes true and you're out of the loop. So that is how this whole thingy works again and again. Now we have a pretty good question stated by Iman that, sir, what if we basically put the counter 0 in this case inside the loop? Like Iman is trying to say what's going to happen if I do something like this. Repeat. And then I'm like, okay, I have, let's say, a variable with the name of count. I initialize the value as 0. And then I'm like, okay, output, let's say I'm outputting the value of count. And then I'm like, okay, count equals to count plus 1, and I want it to repeat till it becomes, let's say, greater than 5, until count is greater than 5. Now there is a big problem in this, a very big problem. So I can highlight it, big problem. And that big problem is, now if I execute the code, originally count is going to have what value? So if I write count and then I, let's say, write answer up here, originally count has the value 0. I'm going to be outputting count, right? So on my screen, I'm going to see 0. Then count plus 1. So this count becomes 1, right? But then is 1 greater than 5? No, right? So it's going to go back. It's going to go back to this stage. Now it's again going to say count may, you need to add 0. So this 1 becomes 0 again. So you're again outputting 0 on the screen. Then you again do 0 plus 1, it's going to become 1. But again, 1 is greater than 5. No, you go back and it again becomes 0. So it's sort of an infinite situation where you are again and again going to be outputting 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And it is going to continue. It's not even going to stop. So that is basically the problem. That is the problem when we basically put a count inside a loop. Now, it will not result in an error. This is not an error. It's like something valid, but it is going to result till the end of our, exactly. It's going to run until I force it to stop somehow. If I'm not forcing it to stop, it's going to run infinitely times. And we never want something to run infinite times. Otherwise, that's a problem for us. Because the moment we get into an infinite loop, something like this is basically what we call as an infinite loop. Because you are unable to even exit out of it. And in this case, most probably your computer is basically crashed. So we don't want our computer to crash, and for that reason, we never want to create a loop that is basically going to work in a way where you basically result or cause a specific infinite loop to occur. So no, it's not necessary that it's going to work till the end of the computer life. You can basically, if you have an infinite loop occurring while you're doing actual programming, like actual coding, basically what I want is that if you're doing actual coding, so like for example, if I'm trying to code something and I run an infinite loop, even though it might be running infinitely, but I have a specific command which I run and it's going to stop whatever was executing in that specific terminal. So it's not going to crash the computer. So now the computers we have nowadays, they are smart enough to stop those infinite loops. But if this infinite loop occurs in a specific game or in a specific file, yeah, in that case, your computer software is going to crash. So that is why we don't include the count thingy within the repeat until statement. So now before ending the class, I want every one of you to tell me, do you guys now understand the purpose of repeat until, and the main logic being that in repeat until, we are not aware, like even though in this case we did specify this scenario that you should have greater than 10, we're going to discuss a few more examples in the Sunday's class. But the main point here to note is that we are basically repeating something until a specific condition is becoming false. So this condition, when it's true, something like this, num is greater than 12, like 12 is greater than 10. The moment this becomes true, you get out. But when it's false and it's not becoming true, you need to keep on repeating it, because it's saying that you need to repeat until this becomes true. So repeat until this condition becomes true, until this condition becomes true, Is this clear, everybody? Yeah, we're going to do, inshallah, harder examples in the Sunday's class. Don't worry. We're going to discuss multiple examples, inshallah, for all of them. Yeah, don't worry. I'm going to discuss all of them. Don't worry. Inshallah, you guys are going to have a better understanding post that Sunday's class. But for now, the main purpose is to let you all know how to basically write a repeat statement. So you're going to start off with repeat, then you're going to write some statements, and then you're going to end it with basically a condition. And the moment that condition becomes true, you basically stop the repetition. Perfect. That's great to know. For everybody else, can you guys also kindly confirm, do you guys understand this logic of repeat loop and also the for loop? I apologize though, my throat is, I don't know, for some reason not fine, and for that reason I might not have been able to explain it the right way, but don't worry, I guess it's clear enough. But if you do have a question, page those so that I can address that. Otherwise, inshallah, in this Sunday's class we're going to see in the Sunday's class, we're going to discuss some more advanced questions too. So inshallah, everything would be much better. No problem, anytime, everybody. Easy scene. So Aliza, clear? Do we have Kurat? Kurat, is it clear? Tosif, clear? Moise, is this clear or not? Yeah, sure, I can share the notes later on, don't worry. Everybody else who hasn't responded till now, Ishal, Amna, is this clear or not? Everybody, kindly. Perfect, perfect. That's great. Moise, clear or not? Moise, not the Moise Mustafa one, the other one. We have two Moise in the class right now. All right, perfect. That's great to know. So, with that, it's 11 p.m. I would have extended the class by 15 minutes and taught even last type of loop, but because my throat is not up to the mark, I'm just going to stop here and inshallah see you guys in the next class. This was officially the end of our paper 2 demo classes. If you are not a part of our official batch and if you want to join our classes for paper number 2, we're going to continue and take everything from such a slow pace, and I'm going to slowly build upon it. I'm going to go towards those advanced questions, especially those 15 marks and those complex sort of programming questions. And if you wanted to, yeah, that's also easy. Don't worry, we're going to discuss it inshallah in the next class. But if you want to learn the whole paper number 2 this way and you want to join our course, you can reach out to me inshallah in my DMs, and I can share the registration link, and then you can be a part of our course. For all those who are basically registered, we're going to have an extra class tomorrow too. If you remember, we had to complete a small chunk of chapter number 6 which was left, which we were basically planning on conducting on Saturday. So I will going to be sharing the timing with you later on. I'm going to confirm it in a while. Say I'm going to confirm it, inshallah. I'm going to have a poll in the group and then you guys can vote about that. But yeah, let's see. I know it's going to be of 1 hour, a short class. Don't worry, it won't be a longer one. But yeah, we're going to have one class tomorrow too. So that's all for today. And then see you guys, inshallah, on Sunday. Also, now, the registered leaders, see you guys tomorrow, inshallah. And then also on Sunday, where we're going to be practicing paper 2 complex sort of questions. So that's all for today. Take care, everybody. Allah Hafiz. And if there is anything that's not clear, just reach out to me later on in my DMs and I can explain the concept to you. Bye bye. Take care. Allah Hafiz.